different times. In order for you to understand your own heart, you have to understand these things that Aka Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam showed us with his own life and taught us with his words. It's important because you have to understand that your heart is an amalgamation of these emotions, and your heart is filled with different desires. Your heart's filled with different desires. Everybody here is desiring something different. But everybody can characterize themselves into two components. There's small desires of the heart that are very numerous. These desires pertain to desires of the world. Right? I want a new car. I need enough income to get by. I want a house. I want a toy. I want Pokemon cards, etc., etc., etc. You have different desires that you have. And then you have the desire that's a little deeper than that. Actually, it's much deeper. That's the desire of your innermost being. That desire to turn towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to move towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is a desire that's different from these other ones, because that's not a desire that you came up with. It's not a desire that you grabbed onto. It's a desire that has been instilled into you from the moment of your creation. This is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, "Ala bi dhikrillahi tatma'innal qulub." This is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, listen, in the remembrance of Allah do hearts find rest. What does it mean for your heart to find rest? Simply put, you have many desires that pertain to the world, and only one desire that pertains to something beyond this world, that desire for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, what happens with these other smaller desires? Either they come true or they don't come true. Okay, maybe you wanted a motorcycle as a child, you never got one. You either hold on to this thing for the rest of your life and you resent people for it, or if you're a healthy human being, you let that thing go. And you understand it's not important. Or what happens, maybe later on in life, you do get a motorcycle. But what happens when you get that motorcycle? The first day you love it, the second day you love it, the first month you love it, the second month, the third month. By the time month 6 rolls around, your love for that thing starts to fade. That is the characteristic of desires of this world. They are fleeting, they are impermanent, and the effect that they have on you is very limited. However, when you take out time to sincerely remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when you take out time to sincerely listen to the words of remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for that brief moment, maybe you'll listen to a half-hour lecture, you'll only listen to like 30 seconds worth of something that affects you. For that brief moment, 30 seconds, 20 seconds, 10 seconds, what your heart feels, it carries over. This is why Aka Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam instituted something like Jummah. So that if you are engrossed in other desires, but you take out time to be here and listen to the words of remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then if you listen to them sincerely, that one small moment of energy that you receive, it's enough to carry you over for the rest of the week. So a lot of us, we don't feel this desire because all of these other smaller desires are clouding our hearts. But you have to remember this cardinal rule, that negativity only seems more powerful because it is more numerous. It actually does not have strength of its own. Everything that is related to the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that has real strength. This is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is trying to tell you when He says that in remembrance of Allah do hearts find rest. The rest that you find from the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it doesn't fade away after 6 months. It doesn't fade away after a year. Rather, if you're doing it right, it only increases with time. A lot of the times, the discussions that we have in these times that we meet together, I'm often explaining a problem that you have. It's a shared problem. Every problem that you have, I have it more, probably. It's a shared problem that we face. But today I want to give you something that you already have that naturally exists within you. You have a natural aptitude to remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Maybe the way in which we remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it seems formal, it seems stiff. Sometimes it takes us an effort just to reconnect with that thing. But the underlying power and the underlying affinity, it is there. If you are a human being, if you believe in Allah and His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, there's no reason why even a small moment of the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala should not be enough to energize you, should not be enough to move you, should not be enough to motivate you, to inspire you. It should not be less than enough to make you strive for more. The reason why Imams and Khatibs share the problems of society with each other, means with you guys, is because we know, and you should know, that you already have the framework to deal with those problems. There is no outside force that needs to tell you. Everything has been instilled within you. All you need are reminders. This is the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is the reminder of the messengers. This is the reminder that is found in the Quran. These are the reminders that are found in the words of Huzur Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They are just reminders. Every moment is a chance to recenter yourself. But it starts with this belief. It starts with this conviction. You have to have the conviction and carry it over, that it is within you. That yes, your heart does find rest in the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Maybe in mentioning words it doesn't find rest. Maybe in doing rituals it doesn't find rest. It's because there's no sincerity in what we do. But there are as many different ways to remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as there are breaths in the body. Your task as a human being is to find just one form of remembrance in which you remember Him sincerely. If you have that one form of remembrance, if you find that one sincere way to remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it reignites the love in your heart. And through that love, all the ahkam of the sharia can be fulfilled by your hands. All of the prohibitions that Aka Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam cautioned against can be avoided against. All the spiritual illnesses that ail us will find their treatment. You just have to take the step. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make it so for us. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us of those who sincerely tread the path of His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the tawfiq to continually center ourselves in His remembrance and love. Allahumma salli wa sallim wa barik ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Please pray your sunnahs.